What is good to people of Atlanta? We are back, and we have a special guest today. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kirkland Carden. I serve on the Gwinnett County Board of Commissioners, District 1. Gwinnett County is a county of 1 million people, and I'm one of the 5 commissioners that serve on the board that make policy decisions that affect Gwinnett County government.
Okay, and we have a co-host today. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
You already know the B Mike Broadband on YouTube. Shout out to
Okay,
you.
so you said you serve on the commission. You make decisions of what again? Say it again.
So check this out. Gwinnett County, county of 1 million people, and Gwinnett County government operates, I compare it to people like a business. So in the private sector, you base your success off widgets you sell and how much money you make back. So in government, we base our success on the services we offer and the quality of services. So Gwinnett County government is huge. We have a $2 billion budget, and I serve along with 4 other people, 5 total, and we make decisions about that budget. And that affects things like public safety, so our police department, business development, water, sewer, clean air, picking trash up off the road, transit. All those decisions we make have a direct impact on a county of 1 million people. And a little bit about the governing structure, there's 5 commissioners, and there's 4 districts. I serve District 1 that is made up of the cities of Duluth, Suwanee, Sugar Hill, and that Gwinnett Place Mall area. And we have one commissioner that's at large, and we call that person the chairperson, or now the chairwoman, since it's a woman. And she's elected by everybody in the county. I'm just elected by 1/4. She's elected by the whole county.
Okay.
Wow. So how often do y'all have to collaborate with like surrounding counties, or is like y'all's decisions made all within Gwinnett?
That's a really good question. So between the 5 of us, we have authority to make decisions on Gwinnett within the boundaries of Gwinnett County. But as anybody who knows Metro Atlanta, it's not one city or one county. It's, you got Cobb, Fulton, Gwinnett, DeKalb, Clayton, Henry. All of that makes up Metro Atlanta, quote, quote. Yeah. And when you have issues, some of those regional issues like transportation, like water, then you have to collaborate with those other counties. Water's a big one. Public safety is a big one, especially with the rise of crime that we're seeing in different areas. COVID-19, making sure you have a unified response to that, because COVID doesn't care whether you're in Cobb, Gwinnett, Fulton. When you have a public health situation, you have to work as a team. And that's, some of the issues that we work with some of our neighboring jurisdictions on.
Okay. So how was it serving on the board during COVID, right? Like, so there was COVID like the first national, like, crisis that happened during your serving?
Man, it was, I'm actually at a loss of words of how crazy it was.
Okay.
So prior to me being on this county commission, I was a city councilman in Duluth. So I had some idea of what a local politician does in this role. So my mind coming into the job, announcing election, I had an image or a perception in mind what I would do. Then the pandemic hit. And then you had to campaign without actually being person to person.
Yeah. Wow.
It was just a very crazy time. And I tell people all the time, the experiences that other politicians would have pre-COVID, I didn't have. So, I was sworn into office December of 2020, and I believe there was a new variant or a new wave that was going on. So my swearing-in ceremony had people spaced out, 6 feet, face mask. I had a face mask, hand sanitizer, all that. A lot of people couldn't make it because they tested positive for COVID or were exposed to it. Wow. So it was just a very crazy time. And like I said, this job, you already have so many other responsibilities for, to service people. And then on top of that, having to do mask mandates, having to make decisions that protect people's health, having to open up vaccination centers. It was just a very crazy time.
So how was that? Like, what were some of the conversations that you had maybe with like owners of businesses, or because Duluth is like they have festivals and everything. Right. So
all that was shut down.
Yeah.
So, man, that was a very awkward spot to be in because some of these nonprofits, cities, different organizations, they come to the county to do events. Mm-hmm. So Run the Reagan's a good example. So on the Ronald Reagan Strip, coming from here, like you're going towards Lilburn, you get on the Ronald Reagan. Okay. They do a race, I believe, at the beginning of each year where I can't remember how many meters or the distance is, but they came to us during COVID saying, can we do the Run the Reagan? We had to tell them no. Because at the time they were asking us, we were all on Zoom calls and, we were seeing upticking cases. And this was before the vaccines. Mm-hmm. So it was literally more lethal than it is now. So having to tell organizations, no, you can't do your race. You can't do your fall festival. You can't do your 5K. Yeah. That wasn't easy. I didn't make a lot of friends doing that.
Really?
Yeah.
I would bet. Yeah.
So for like your position, how long is like that term?
That's a good question too. So it's a 4-year term. Mm-hmm. So it staggers somewhat like Congress. So in the off year where you vote for governor, you have 2 seats up out to 5, and that's districts 2 and district 4. And in the years where you have the president on the ballot, you have districts 1, 3, and the chairperson. They're up for election. So I don't have an election this year, but if I do re-election, that'll be in 24.
Okay. So what got you into wanting to do politics?
So I grew up a good bit in my family. We, I had some politicians in my family. My grandmother was really involved in politics in the Dayton, Ohio area. And outside of the elected part, I had a lot of people in my family just work in government. Like my mom used to work for the VA for 36 years, Department of Veterans Affairs. Oh, wow. So, I joke around and tell people all the time, like, our dinner conversations were just kind of, like, different. Yeah. Like, my friends would come over, like, to hang out or eat dinner with my family, and they'll, like, leave and be like, bruh, like, your family talks about so much different stuff. Like, it's just different. And I think being exposed to that just helped me see that, that's something that I can do if I want to do it, which I think is really important for young people. And then it was just something I took an interest to. Yeah. As a young person, my interest was always in history and in music. Mm-hmm. So I just went down. I had my taste of both, and I just went down the history political route, and here I am.
So before we go full down the political route, let's talk about the music a little bit.
Sure.
So how was that? Like, did you want to be like an engineer, producer?
That's
artist?
Exactly what I wanted to be. Engineer /
I could tell
producer.
When you brought up Logic.
Exactly. Yeah. Live sound. So my story is this. My senior year of high school, y'all know Grayson High School? They have the technical school. Mm-hmm. I went there my senior year and I studied audio engineering. I got my technical certification in it. I liked it so much, I went to the Art Institute of Atlanta and I got my associate's degree in audio engineering. So I went to the 2-year program. I did that, and that's where I learned all the DAWs, Logic, Reason, Pro Tools. I learned how to record. I learned how to live sound. I learned how to do post-production. So for movies or videos, being able to do the music for that, whether it's pre-recorded or something you create, and just recording good sounds, right? So, when you go in those sound libraries, there's drum hits, birds chirping, did all that. But it was a little bit of music theory. Like I did learn a little bit how to play the keyboard. I got my first MPC when I was in art school.
Legendary.
Exactly.
Legendary drum program.
But, that program was more so learn the audio engineering side, less music theory. Mm-hmm. I did more of that on my own outside of the class. But that just taught me how to use, like, Reason. That was always my weapon of choice. Or Logic. Or even Fruity Loops. Okay. Yeah, all that stuff. So did that for 2 years. I graduated the program. I did work in doing like live sound, doing shows. I would say for a little less than a year, like 9 months after graduating. But I knew before I finished that program, I was like, this is cool, but this isn't the path that I want to take. Yeah. And I ended up going to Georgia State in 2010 and getting my bachelor's in political science.
So 2020. So your campaign was ran 2019 then, right?
For county commission, I announced in 2019, and then the election was actually in 2020.
In 2020. So, how did it feel? What were some of the things that went into starting your campaign, and like, cause this is your first time running for like a position?
So let me recap. I actually ran and was elected successfully to the Duluth City Council in 2017, and that was my first office. And that gave me a lot of good experience to get ready to run for the big seat, which was the county commission in 2020.
So we'll start at Duluth then, right? So what went into starting that campaign? How do like politicians usually go about getting funding to be seen by people? Like, what was some of your process?
So that's a really good question. And for me, it was a little bit of an interesting story. So I was actually in between jobs. And I actually left a job in the private sector, and I ended up working for Georgia Department of Transportation, or y'all may know as GDOT. Mm-hmm. And I worked with them for 5 years. But in between that gap, I decided to run for the city council seat. And I said, this is a really good time in life. Like, I'm not, I have a little bit of time to my next move. This is something I'm interested in doing. And it gave me an opportunity to put time into building a campaign to do it. So by the time I started my new gig at GDOT, the machine was already in place. So to answer your question, one of the things I did is I sat down and I asked myself, why do I want to do this? And I said, if I were elected, what would I hope to accomplish? What I didn't know was I was actually writing my campaign platform. And I think that's important for anybody wanting to get into office, because you don't want to just run to run. You want to run to do something. That's what, or at least I hope that's what you want to do. Yeah. So once I got that out as a thought into something physical and something written, then that's when I started to take steps to like put together a campaign. So getting a campaign manager, hiring a consultant, getting somebody to help me manage volunteers to go knock on doors. And then the funding, man. I just, make a spreadsheet of all people you've known over the years, high school, college, people you worked with, anybody you think would contribute, is in a space to contribite, and then just call them, have events. I think for that race, I raised like $12,000 or $15,000. Have to go back and check to be exact, but wasn't overly expensive. City of Duluth is like a city of 30,000 people, so it's not too much of a heavy lift. But, we did it, and we beat a 20-year incumbent in a three-way race and got 55% of the vote.
That's crazy.
It is very crazy. That's still kind of like that still kind of trips me out now, too, like so many years away from it. But it was a great experience. Doing that really gave me good preparation on how to run a campaign, knowing the political culture of my area, the area that we live. And then it gave me good experience for actually governing, like actually doing the job when it comes time to serve on the county commission.
Yeah. So how can I phrase this question? What are do you think that the views of how things should go in just a county between different people running is as divided as it may seem, that
as you
people,
see
that people perceive it is, based off of
what you see on the news, right, and what you see on social media? Yes and no. So I'm not going to lie to you and say this is an easy time to serve an elected office. It's very divisive. At times it can be very toxic. I saw on the news yesterday did y'all hear about that retired judge?
No, I didn't.
So somebody killed a retired judge. I guess that judge handled his case in 2005.
Wow. That
person actually tied him up, shot him. He died. And then when police came, he tried to kill himself, but he didn't. He's actually in critical condition now. But he actually had a list in his car of other politicians that he wanted to go after next. So I'm not going to lie to you and say it's all like, peaches and cream, rainbows and glitter.
Yeah.
But, I if it's something important to you, then you'll do it, or at least consider it. But here's the optimistic side of that. As a county commissioner, I deal with things like land use and zoning, like I said, public safety, water, community, public health, budget. I don't really deal with the crazy or contentious issues like abortion, gun rights. You know what I mean? So a lot of those contentious issues, I think if you play it right, you can avoid. And I look at some people, like some friends of mine who are in Congress or serve in the state legislature, and they just have to deal with some really crazy and some really heavy issues.
Yeah.
I just don't do that, trying to find out, settle a water dispute or do a zoning case.
Yeah.
So I like to think that's one of the cool things about local government is that if you do it right, you can talk about issues in a way where you can bring people together.
Yeah.
I'll give you a perfect example. Funding for the public library system. Who doesn't enjoy your public library?
Yeah.
It's a public use, or it's a public facility that's there whenever you need it. And when you have kids, you're going to use it even more. That's a fact. I can tell you about that one. So I think, talking about those issues, you can bring people together in a community. And I think that's really important in a time where it feels like everyone's so divided.
Yeah, and the library is definitely important for people that don't have access to a lot of resources.
Totally.
Like a lot of people still don't even have like great internet at the home or like good use of laptops or computers or whatever the case may be to do their schoolwork. So.
Yeah, Duluth's library is very nice.
That one's dope. I actually worked on that one on the city council and the county commission. So, like, libraries today, they're like lifelong learning centers. I mean, you go there, you can check out books, but they got 3D printers. They got recording studios. We got a green screen.
That's crazy.
We got high school GED programs, high school diploma programs, teach people English that, they may come from somewhere else and English is not their proficient language. I mean, it's just so many services we provide. Especially when you think about the time of inflation that we're in, where all these services are going up.
Exactly.
Gwinnett library system is still giving you free services.
Yeah.
So, again, I think if you talk about those issues, you can bring a community together.
Yeah. I think a big thing that COVID did was drive people to their phone for information instead of the community. But I think, like, slowly as everything is progressing towards, a thing of the past as much as it can be, people will eventually start to look more to their community for information.
Definitely.
But what do you think are, like, if you had to say like 3 points that you really wanted to focus on, like how you said you were writing your when you were thinking about your whys, what would you say would be like your top 3 things?
So my top 3 or 4, it was transportation, because that was the year we had that transit referendum in Gwinnett. Do we bring heavy rail to Gwinnett County? So transportation, public safety, that's really huge, and it still is. Improving Gwinnett Place Mall. And that's in my district, and that's a good economic development, community opportunity to improve the community in this area.
Absolutely.
So there was another one. It was public safety, transportation, Gwinnett Place Mall. I can't remember the other one on the top of my head, but when I ran for county commission, those were the 3 that moved me. And then, I think it's important to say too, I'm not going to forget to say this. Depending on the race you run for, you should do polling.
Okay.
Right? You should go to a firm that does public opinion polling and find out not what you care about, but what the community that you're hoping to serve cares about. Because at the end of the day, you're running to serve them. It's not for you. So you got to find out where they're at. And if I remember the polling, I think that's where people are at. I think economic development, jobs is super important. But those were the 3 issues that were part of my platform when I ran for county commission.
Do you think railway will make its way up to Gwinnett, or do you think that's something that is in the distant future?
I think it will, but I mean, at some point in time, the referendum will pass. But even when it does pass, I do think it's going to be, quite some time before we're able to ride a MARTA bus or ride some kind of train, even if it's light rail, heavy rail, something, just given the time that it takes to build, you know, the supply and labor issues we're dealing with. When you do pass a referendum, you're saying we're cool with raising or collecting the sales tax for X amount of years to pay for this service. Well, you still have to collect the money. So if you got a project that is $2 billion, you're starting at zero and you're collecting it bit by bit by bit by bit to get to that $2 billion you need to hopefully, you know, get the project that you want. And probably lastly, and probably most importantly, in Gwinnett is you have to acquire right away. And I think that would have been easier to do in a time in Gwinnett where there were just less people. But a county of 1 million people, you can't find too many empty lots to where you want to put the train route. So that means you got to buy a bunch of businesses, maybe some homes, use eminent domain. It's just a long process. So
the county has definitely grown over the past 15, 20 years.
And that's the challenge with doing, you know, a rail system now than if you did it in the 90s, 30 years ago, because it literally would have been easier. But with that being said, it's still something we got to do because the county's only growing. And we have to start thinking, how can we get people to and from this county in a quicker and more efficient way? We need to, I mean, you shouldn't have to, in a metro region this big, your only option to go into the airport should not be driving your car to and from. I mean, look at DC, LA, New York, hop the train, park your car somewhere, go to the airport. It's the busiest airport in the world. We need to start thinking like that.
Exactly.
Because I like usually when I leave from Duluth, I'll probably have to like Uber to at least the train's Dorville, and then ride it down and the same on the way back. Sometimes that could be you got a late flight, you know, getting the Uber.
I do that. You know, if it's it depends. If it's super late, then I'll be like, well, let me just go ahead and drive or Uber down there. But more often than not, I'm like you, man. I take the train, you know, Dorville, and just take it directly to the airport.
So based off the things that you handle in your district now, what do you think are some of the biggest issues or the hardest that you're going to have to tackle? Like you have some, like I think Gwinnett does good with their roads because every time I get to 285, listen.
Compared to some other counties,
man,
we do good in that department.
But what are your biggest accomplishments that you feel like you've had since you've been in this position?
That's okay. So I would say everything's better in 3, so I'll just keep it at 3.
Okay.
I think an accomplishment has to be COVID-19, getting past the pandemic.
Okay.
We actually opened a super center at Gwinnett Place Mall, the old Sears, and we partner with the Georgia Department of Health for that. And when it's at capacity, we were servicing over 3,000 people a day.
Wow.
And this was, you know, the initial shots, right? This is like, you know, it's finally got approved and we kind of get it out to the general public. So, you know, that's something I'm really proud of. And sure enough, if you look at the vaccination rates for Gwinnett County, we're above the state average. I try and look at the numbers every week. I get an email for it, but I can't remember the exact numbers right now. But to me, that's an accomplishment. That shows that, you know, we were really aggressive about it. And if you look at other counties, you know, the results speak for themselves. So that's number one. I think number two for me would have to be, and this is, man, maybe a little more personal, but, you know, when I campaigned, there was this issue that was going on in 2020. Gwinnett County had a Confederate monument in downtown Lawrenceville.
Okay.
Not sure.
Is it still there?
No, we removed it.
Okay.
No.
See, that's one of my biggest accomplishments.
Okay.
I personally feel, because in a county that's like as diverse as Gwinnett is, as modern as Gwinnett is, to have the county seat, Lawrenceville, and the square of it, to have a Confederate monument on it is completely contradictory to where Gwinnett is at and what it stands for today.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And as somebody who's raising their family here, you know, with a son, I have nieces and nephews, not nieces and nephews, younger cousins in the area. That's not something I want to be associated with the place where we live.
Okay.
Period. So I definitely say that. And I think the biggest accomplishment for me the third one has to be continuing, this level of continuity. Because if you look at 2020, you have 3 new commissioners come in. Mm-hmm. All 3 black, all 3 Democrat, replacing 3 Republicans. Mm-hmm. So in the span of 4 years, Gwinnett went from all 5 seats being Republican, all white, a little more senior, to by the time you get to November 2020, they're all 4 Democrats, all 5 Democrats, 4 African Americans, 1 Asian, which happens to be LGBTQ, mm-hmm. and we're a lot younger than our predecessors. Like, I'm 34. And for you to have that change and disprove all the naysayers saying, man, y'all going to get Democrats in here, you're going to get black people in here, and it's just going to go downhill. Yeah. That never happened. Like, there's no scandal or smoking gun to say these people are incompetent, can't do their jobs, and it's going to be the end of the world if they get in the office. Yeah. Like, no, we got in there, we handled business and proved them wrong. So to me, that's probably one of the most important accomplishments, is continuing to do business as normal in the middle of a pandemic.
That is amazing, actually.
Yeah, I do have a question about that, though.
Go for it.
How does it feel to be African American in one of those seats, to be able to make a difference and impact in your community, compared to, if you grew up we all grew up in Gwinnett, so we know how Gwinnett was 15, 20 years ago. Yeah. So what does it mean now that we're becoming more diverse and we have a lot of different
It's definitely something that weighs heavy on me, and it's the opportunity of a lifetime. I tell that to people all the time, right? That this change was going to happen at some point, but to be one of the folks who are at the tip of that spear of that change, it's truly a blessing. I'm at a loss of words when I think about it, but it's a big responsibility, and I don't take it lightly. Because, I might be one of the first. I definitely don't want to be the last.
For sure.
And I feel it's kind of my responsibility is to do a good job, do the job, but do it in a way with class and dignity. So they say, well, I wouldn't have a problem bringing in another African American in their 30s.
I think what that does, though, too, is it gives people the optics to say, maybe I shouldn't judge on that basis and the quality of the candidate. Yeah. And that's why I like where everything is moving towards. In the society as a whole, like, a lot of people who will watch media, I think the world seemed divisive, especially during COVID, because people only talk to each other in 140 characters on Twitter. Oh, yeah. Or on Facebook chats. Yeah. But when I go outside, it's just not the way that I see things going on. People are intertwining way more than you would believe.
Let's keep it real. It's a lot easier to say something crazy or disrespectful if it's on Twitter.
For sure.
Yeah. When you're face to face with somebody, you're less likely to say something crazy.
Exactly.
Because something may happen afterwards.
There are consequences.
That's the big one. And then, too, you see that, man, that person ain't that, crazy, or maybe I demonized him a little bit too much. So, and that's one of the good things that, COVID is starting to get behind us, is that we're face-to-face now. Because you're right, man. Summer of 2020, when people were on Twitter and you had so much unrest going on and the pandemic, that was a really crazy time.
Yeah, it was a crazy time.
Yeah, looking back on it, there was, man, to be in this city, it was crazy. Yeah.
So how do you think, because GGC is in your district, right?
No, it's not.
It's considered Lawrenceville?
Yeah, so let me say this. So I went over the cities that are in my district right now. So Duluth, Suwannee, Sugar Hill, though it's not a city that Gwinnett plays small area. Okay. We went through redistricting. Mm-hmm. Something that we do every 10 years. In January 1st, my district will be half of Suwannee, Duluth, Berkeley Lake, Norcross, Peachtree Corners, and then I will go into the city limits of Lawrenceville, though I don't have GGC in it. Okay. Yeah. It would be easier to show on a map.
Okay. But, yeah. So even how do you think GGC has contributed to the growth of Gwinnett County?
GGC is a gem. for Gwinnett County.
That's
And
where
I think a lot of
from.
people sleep on it. Okay, what year?
I graduated 2018.
Yeah, my sister graduated this summer.
Okay.
Yeah, she studied criminal justice, and she went on Hope. You know, I love that.
Yes.
But yeah, GGC is a real gem for Gwinnett County. I always thought one of the things Gwinnett was missing growing up here was an institution of higher learning. Like, I know we have Gwinnett Technical College, but that's not quite the same as having a 4-year institution and then all the growth and the people coming in that brings. And with GGC, one thing I like that they're doing is they're building housing.
Yep.
So they're going to create a bubble. And there's a huge economy that comes with having a successful institution of higher learning. And to have that in Gwinnett and Lawrenceville at that, where you have to get to the center of the county to attend and participate, that's a real value add for Gwinnett.
Yeah, I just drove through there this morning and seeing the housing that they're putting in. I go through every now and then, and to see how it's changed from leaving GGC in 2018, going back and forth to school, to now is crazy. Like, and it took me traveling to New York to understand the development of a city, right? Because growing up here, I just was kind of going through the motions. I didn't know what I was looking at. I couldn't contextualize it. But then I go to places like Atlanta where I would see like once a month or something like that. And seeing the growth of that, then coming back to Gwinnett and saying, I see where this is going, where they're building more. I think there's a negative connotation on apartments.
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes when you can condense the community, you can flesh out some of the talent that's in there. Because like when people learn to get like in subdivisions and stuff like that, there may be somebody who could cook the best jerk chicken, right? Or,
and you never know about it.
But now that tenant could go get a space in a complex or within a space that has 2-3 different apartment complexes within a block or two, and that person could contribute to the community that way.
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is one of the things that you like about living in some of urban areas is that you get a sense of community.
For sure.
And I think that's one of the tasks that we have to do as Gwinnett County is, I think in the past, there have been different cities that have done a really good job of building a sense of community. So whether it's Norcross, Duluth, Lawrenceville, they do a really good job at that. But there's a lot of area, Gwinnett is, county of 1 million people, most of it is still in the unincorporated Gwinnett County. So I think what we have to do as a county is build those projects that build a sense of community. And that's why I'm so excited about the Gwinnett Place Mall redevelopment. Because if we get that right, you can have green space, office, apartments, housing, of different income brackets, commercial that's modern, and you can have that sense of community. You can have a little city over there. Yeah. And then the success of that will ripple on to some of those older commercial shops. Do exactly what you said. Build that community over there.
I definitely agree with that as far as Gwinnett County is concerned or Gwinnett Place Mall is concerned, because I remember a time period where that was the mall to go to in this area. And that
it was up there with Perimeter Mall back in the day. Remember?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's still a great space. You know, it could be used and utilized for so much more, bring more value to the community.
So I'll say this, it will be, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That is my goal on the board, is to tee everything up to where that is successful. And I don't know if you can do that in one term or maybe even two, just being very direct and candid. But, I'm confident that when I'm no longer in this seat, we'll have huge announcements. There'll be a groundbreaking of some sort. But it's my goal when I'm like 10 years removed and me and my son are driving by, we'll be like, yeah, that coolness you see over there, it wasn't like that. I'll have to show you pictures. So here's a little cool thing, a little side note. One of the things we do use the mall for now, since it's in the middle of transition, we actually use it to film a lot of movies.
Yeah, I've seen Stranger Things in there.
Man, Stranger Things, a lot of Netflix specials. Gosh, what's that show? The Ozarks?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, the new season, bro. They shot several scenes inside there.
I did not know
Because
that.
that's what I was gonna ask. Like, when people come, does that go towards county funding?
Yes.
Okay.
We collect revenue from movies shot in Gwinnett County.
What about like the Soul Circus too? That was there.
Yes, that contributes to the success of Gwinnett County. So that's another use for it, until we do some kind of redevelopment. And I don't think a lot of people know just how big Gwinnett is for bringing in movie production. And that's something we have to do a better job of communicating. But like OFS site, the site off Jimmy Carter, you can see off 85.
Yeah.
They shoot all the Marvel movies over there.
Really?
I was on the set for Black Panther 2 like earlier this spring. They shoot like, again, Avengers, the first Black Panther, all that over there. Like, that's a huge asset in Gwinnett.
Know that.
Yeah, Fast and Furious. I mean, all that stuff is shot over there.
Okay, I have a question, and I'm gonna try to be as vague as possible because I don't know. This is things that I've heard around.
Yeah.
But that OF building, are there any plans for that? What is that exactly?
So years ago, that was a building that was owned by GM, and it had a general. It was like industrial use, right? So they used it as a plant to build, goods.
Yeah.
Fast forward today, the county bought that property. I can't remember. It was a few years before I was elected to the Board of Commissioners. And when we had our transit referendum, the original goal was to have the transit station be there. And you could still have room for other things like apartments, office space, whatever you wanted to do. But needless to say, the referendum didn't pass.
Okay.
So until we're in a spot where we can get a little more clarity of what the county does with transit, right now it's being used as some office space, but it's really, the most of it is being used for movie and film production.
Okay.
And it's a great use until it transitions to something else.
Yeah,
And it's
I
so
agree.
big. I was surprised. It's so much land over there. You could start building things over there with more permanent use, like apartments,
Yeah.
and still shoot movies.
That's crazy.
I did not know that. That's
So which one do you think will come to, I don't know how Gwinnett will be affected by this, but which one do you think will come to Gwinnett first? The legalization of marijuana or gambling?
Oh, that's a great question. So, the gambling, that's a state issue.
Yeah.
So that's something the state legislature,
Okay,
they got to
okay.
work on. But it's like every other year they bring up a bill. I don't really know where that's going to go. But I can speak on the decriminalization of marijuana. So last year, I actually introduced an ordinance. It was in the fall last year to decriminalize small amounts of marijuana.
Okay.
So the ordinance reads today in Gwinnett County, if you're caught with an ounce of marijuana or less, you can face a year, 12 months in jail, pay $1,000 fine, and have to do, I can't remember the exact number, but X amount of hours of community service. The ordinance that I, drafted with the help of plenty of other people and proposed to my colleagues would have completely removed jail time. The fee would not be any more than $150. Could not exceed $150. And I think the community service was no more than 20 hours. And it actually had language that can get offenders in a drug treatment course.
Oh, wow.
Because everybody that says, that dissented against the ordinance was like, well, marijuana is a gateway drug. So why would you want to make that more prolific?
exactly.
So, okay, if that's the case, it's a gateway drug. Let's get these young people in a course where they can get drug treatment to get their lives in a better position. And I think we all can agree, putting you in the Gwinnett County Jail in Lawrenceville off 316
For sure.
is not the best way to get your life back on course.
True.
So that was my whole motivation was I don't want you to go to a jail cell because there are studies shown, you don't need to study, firsthand experience.
Yeah.
Once you enter in that environment for a number of different reasons, there's barriers to education, there's barriers to employment, and there's a stigma that is hard to shake in this nation. And then too, let's not beat around the bush. We're all 3 men of color here.
For sure.
The drug laws in this nation are disproportionate in who they affect and how they're applied. So if a cop has his implicit bias, he or she can take a more aggressive approach or a more lenient approach to how they enforce the marijuana ordinance. So with this, it completely removes jail time. If it's under an ounce. So he or she doesn't have as much wiggle room with their implicit bias, who they want to lock up, who they don't.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I wasn't able to get enough votes to get it passed. It failed 3-2. So 3 votes against it, 2 votes for it.
And that's voted by the
Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
So again, this is a really important job. If that would have passed, you would have had the decriminalization of marijuana in the second largest county in the state.
Yeah.
We're at 10% of the state's population. That's
Would've been
huge.
big,
Yeah.
That would have been
So like,
major.
how often do you like your decisions? How often are your decisions impacted by donors? If that's a thing on that level, right? So, or your representatives. That's a better way.
So
to
how
phrase it.
often do I make decisions that affect my, I'm going to say like
Your
constituents?
districts?
Yeah. A good deal. And a couple reasons. So I'll just focus on 3. We do land use and zoning.
Okay.
So we're asking ourselves, somebody come to us with an application for a rezoning, and there could be a empty lot, and they'll come to us and say, this is zoned for residential, but I want to build a gas station.
Okay.
Some just examples like that. That's a decision that will affect the makeup of a community. And we do those every month. We have a public hearing night at the end of every month where we do zoning cases. So that's huge. Second would be the budget. Like, depending on how we spend the money in the budget, which is over $2 billion, that can have a direct impact on the people of this county, whether it's rent and utility assistance during the pandemic, whether it's money going towards public health, like epidemiology or sexually transmitted diseases. That has a direct impact on people.
Yes.
And then finally is the policy decisions you can make by passing resolutions and ordinances. So a perfect example of that would be the marijuana ordinance. That if that passed, that would have been a public policy that would have decriminalized small amounts of marijuana, and that would have had a direct impact on the people who live in this county. So whether it's through zoning cases, budget, or public policy, the decisions we make at that local level have a direct impact. Like, sometimes in politics you get theoretical. If you do this, will it really do this? Like, no. Like, if I don't fund this, then it will affect these people over here. If I pass this ordinance over here, it will affect, or it won't affect, these people over here.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a large belief too, that people should be more active in local government.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like a lot of people are more involved in their local community government or local elections and whatever the case may be.
And the crazy thing is, it's so easy.
Yeah.
Like you, case in point, you have a county commissioner sitting with you right now. Like, what are the odds of you getting Governor Kemp to sit down with you?
Exactly.
Or a member of Congress, if they can fit in their schedule? Like, we're here. Like, we live in the community with you. So it's so easy to do. It's almost like, why not?
Yeah, I think it's miseducation though.
Yeah.
Like, me being like a college, and I can never. When I was growing up, people used to be like, "You don't need college." You know what I'm saying? I didn't really think nothing of it until
Right.
I went to college and graduated, and then my English 1101 teacher, she told me, when you have conversations after you leave college, you will find it harder to portray ideas to people who didn't go to college.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what he's saying comes from a misunderstanding of how the world works just around them. So a lot of people, they just think, because that's what you're taught. Your money has the presidents on it. You learn about the presidents in school.
Yeah.
As a kid, like, you don't know who you're. You may know who, like, Sonny Perdue. I remember the name, but like I don't remember what happened.
Right.
But by the time you get old enough to vote, you're still like just knowing who the president is. I just think a lot of people that aren't informed what local people do.
No,
right?
no. Bro, I have the most ambiguous job for people. Like, by that I mean, to your point, growing up, you know the president.
Mm-hmm.
You probably know Congress.
Yeah.
You probably know the governor. You may or may not know the state legislature. Like, I feel that's kind of nebulous, like, which is like the state's version of Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And then for some reason in this country, people know their mayors. Like they'll make that jump from mayor, even though my office is technically a little bit above in the food chain.
Yeah.
And they might know their school board, especially with, things like mass and critical race theory getting, huge right now. But there's a lot of people that don't know a county government exists.
Yeah.
I think they think counties are a place and not necessarily like an actual organization, operation working every single day.
Yeah.
And I find myself with this job just educating people that there is a county government and this is what we do. And then once you build that foundation, it's like, okay, so this is what I do and this is why you need to be involved.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right about that.
This is a question that I feel a lot of people don't have the answer to, and it is, what is a politician's job?
I mean, that's a big one. So,
Let me see if that's still on.
I mean, I'll definitely say with any of these jobs or elected office, you have, your job responsibilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like whether it's on the school board, you're going to focus on education. If it's on the county commission, you're going to focus on county operations. So you definitely have your bare minimum legal definition of what you're supposed to do. But I also think the other thing that you really should do is provide leadership, and provide, folks with a good example. Mm-hmm. Like that's something that's maybe not in the definition of a job description, but when you get this job, people will look at you and you should hold yourself to, somewhat, I don't want to say pure, but a higher standard, right? Because I know for a fact that, like, if I were in the news for something not positive, that's going to have effect on not just me and my family, but others, because people look to me for leadership. So I think a politician should always be willing and ready to provide leadership.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Because I had a question. I had a question too.
Go for it.
And it was along the same lines of what I asked before he came out.
Which was, remind me.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It's recording.
All right. So the question that I had was, being a politician, right? Mm-hmm. Compared to a rapper, and like you said before, you can be in the news and you always have an image to uphold. Yeah. You can't go to the strip club and have a fight with security or a bouncer, and your career does well after that. Yeah. But a rapper can. So as a politician or a council member in your community, how do you feel about reaching the youth, and how do you think you can impact the youth to be more, like you?
Right. Yeah. So, up front, my influence will never be that of a rapper or entertainer, right? Because it's just not that kind of job. Like there's an actual machine, media PR firm to promote entertainers.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm not an entertainer. Right now, I know some people who get elected, that's part of their, shtick or their appeal. But, just speaking for me, I look at this as a job. Mm-hmm. Like, I view this as public service. I go, I punch a clock. I go to I don't literally punch a clock, but I go, I answer emails. I help work with people to get through their problems. I attend BOC meetings. Then I go home and play with my kid. No different than anybody who works at a post office or in an accounting firm. So, that influence is a little different. But with that said, I definitely think you have an opportunity to influence or speak with young people. I'm still taken back by when I go to like schools, when I go to like youth clubs, how many young people like are in awe that they have a politician or president or an elected official.
Wow.
I still sometimes forget that there's a little bit of a mystique with that. And I also think it's good for young people to see another young person doing it. Like, I'm 34 now, but on the scale of politicians, I'm definitely on the younger side.
Exactly.
People have a perception in their head of what they think a county commissioner or a congressperson is.
Yeah.
So then when you come out and, it's a guy who's 6'1", bald with a beard, who's probably their older brothers or their parents' age, they're like, oh, and I think that perception helps. But like we said before, before we came out in front of the camera, you got to talk about issues they care about.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
then you got to deliver on them. So that's why pushing the marijuana decriminalization was really big to me, because I remember when I was campaigning, I went to a church in Lilburn, and I was asking about, somebody asked me about my views on the marijuana issue. I told them straight up, like, look, I'm going to research this, and when I'm in office, I'm going to do what I can to try to address it.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe a small amount of marijuana should have the potential to derail your life. And though that ordinance did not pass, I think my supporters, I think young people following it, said to themselves, damn it didn't work, but he's following through on a campaign promise.
And I think that's good to reiterate, because I was having a conversation on Twitter Spaces with people, and that's where the question of what is a politician's job came from, and what I was trying to tell them was sometimes when a politician says they're going to do something, right? Because from their perspective, you said you were going to do this, you didn't do it, right? And I think a lot of people don't understand the dynamic of, I said I was going to do it, right? But there's other people that I'm working with.
Government is a big bureaucratic, especially a government like GWINNETT, it's like a ship like the Titanic, or one of those big Panamax ships that you see bring in all the freight cars and all that. To even turn the boat left or right is just so much that goes into it to get it to change course.
Yeah.
So to think that you can be in a big ship like the state of Georgia or the federal government and get it to change course in 2 or 3 years is just not realistic.
Yeah.
And I think there's twofold to that. I think we have to educate ourselves and have patience, right? We have to understand the process and understand that it takes time, have that patience. But like I said before, people have to deliver, right? The other side of that coin is this. Every 4 years, someone runs for office, they sell us a bag of goods, and because we're not as engaged, we don't hold them accountable, they don't deliver. So that's, there might be some education that has to be done, but we also have to hold these folks accountable, myself included, right?
Exactly.
So I'm not immune to that.
What do you think was your biggest misstep that you've had along this course, or like one thing that you feel like you could have did differently or could have played better? Like, do you have any of those situations?
Let me think about that. Something I think would have played differently. Let me really think about that. I definitely think, especially with the COVID-19 thing, and I'll tie it into this, is that, going back to being that role model.
Yeah.
There were parts of the pandemic or when it was going on where I probably wasn't the best with my face mask usage.
Okay.
And you can see how that can come back to bite you if you're preaching public health and then you get a little lax at an event and then it's on social media and then people be like, don't talk to me about public health if you're here without a face mask on. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, I feel like that's just one of those little simple avoidable things.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I wasn't thinking, or because I'm not in a high risk group. I'm fairly healthy. I'm 34, so. But still, that's it's not an excuse. I would probably say if there's one thing I could go back and tell myself off the top of my head is like, hey man, there's eyes watching. Keep the face mask on, keep it handy with you, because if you don't, you could be on Twitter.
Yeah, for sure.
and it happens.
So, do you ever like watch the news or get on Twitter or get on Facebook and like search yourself to see what people are saying?
Not too much. I definitely have alerts for like Gwinnett County and my name if it pops up in a news story. But to be honest with you, that's one thing I don't do. Like if there's a news story that involves me, one thing I don't do is I don't look at the comments.
Okay.
I just feel like you would just drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
And I have people that like in my office that look at the comments, that look at next door. So it's just like that's just my personal thing. I just leave that alone. I might Google my name though. My funny story. My mom's like, I Google you, baby. I'm proud. I Google you. I find all this stuff. I was like, I don't really Google myself. It's like, well, you should. So every now and then I'll do that, but I do not touch comments at all.
Do you think your son will follow in your footsteps?
Well, seeing how he's 1 year old, I think it's kind of early. But I'm just messing with you.
I should ask that first.
I mean, I don't know. I'm the kind of dad. I don't want to push him to do anything, but if he does, I definitely feel a good sense of, pride. But at the same time, follow your own footsteps. I think I would like my son to be that kid that charts his own path,
for sure,
opposed to being a child that's like, let me follow the path laid by mom and dad. We'll see.
So what would you think if somebody can't come to your event to see what you're running on or anything, or any politician, what do you think the most credible way somebody could figure out what's going on in their community is?
Well, definitely reach out or follow. So I'll say for Gwinnett, follow our county webpage or our county social media. And we put out a lot of good information about events, things coming up in the community that are designed to engage our population. So, I may not have the latest and greatest on my Twitter feed, but we do have a communications firm in Gwinnett County, and it's their job to engage y'all, the general public. So definitely follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, check our website, and just get involved, right? Or just keep a tab on what's going on. And then from there, once you get a good feeling what's going on in your neighborhood or your community, then maybe shoot me an email, reach out to staff, and find other ways for you to get involved.
Because I see a lot of people, they get their news from and this headline is the headline. Clickbait headlines is the real pandemic, okay?
Yeah,
because people do not read past the bold text.
I don't think they do. I really think they just read the headline, and that shapes the opinion.
Yeah.
But that's something we have to do a better job at, is we as a society, we as people, is going to legitimate sources to get information. There's a reason why I directed you to the county website and not a blog site.
Yeah.
We have to hold ourselves to a certain standard. If we put out false information or fake news, we're called out for it. And pending what it is, we will be held liable for it. Not we as an individual, but we in the county organization. So, I know that's something we talked about prior to coming out was, providing folks with reliable information, especially with elections. And I think there has to be an assertive effort to push people to go into sites or sources where it's legitimate. This is a legitimate fact check source, I
always try to tell people, always think about the reason why this person is giving you this information.
That's true too.
Because if it's on a website where their job is to make money,
yeah,
I will generate things in a format that maximizes that over the truth
or entertainment.
Yeah.
And there's some sites like I see people go to, and it's like, bro, they're there to entertain you.
Exactly.
You know, that's not necessarily your educational piece right there.
I even tell people that about the news, because this is another thing why college was very important for me to know how to read the world, is because my one of my business teachers or professors, they said, who's the customer of television networks? And everybody, you would assume like the people they sell the cable to, but it's not. It's the commercials.
Oh yeah,
that's their customer.
Yeah.
So they just need you so they can go take this amount of eyeballs and sell it to a company and
politicians. So since we're going to talk about that, politicians buy TV ads, radio ads, digital ads. So, you know, it's a lot of different companies, groups, PACs, interest groups, you name it, that are the real customers to this media.
Have you ever had a campaign run about you?
You mean like a commercial?
Yeah, like somebody was like, "Don't vote for you." Has that ever happened?
I think maybe like on Twitter or something, but like not. I'm not at that level where there's like campaign ads saying Kirkland Carden. Yeah. You know, he doesn't walk his dog. You know?
He kicks babies.
You know, but I will say this: when I was running, you know, Gwinnett's such a big county. When you run, especially during the pandemic, where you couldn't be with people, we ran a lot of digital and TV ads. So, you know, I'll admit I was one of those customers. You know, of media. So. Yeah.
So what's like your 10-year goal with do you see yourself staying in politics, or do you see?
You know, that's a really good question. At the end of the day, you know, I view it as public service. I got, you know, my professional career, which I pursue outside of this, and it's something I still enjoy, and I would like to continue to do it, especially since I'm young. But, you know, now that, you know, I got a family, I'm a dad. Because keep in mind, when I was first running for everything, it was just me. You know, maybe going to my siblings and saying, hey, do y'all think I should do this? But for me right now, it's always what's the best move for the family, for the team as a whole. But, you know, with that said, I'm thankful I have the support of my family to do this. I wouldn't do it otherwise. But, you know, I would like to, you know, stay around for a little bit. And since I'm, you know, got youth on my side and continue to do some good things. Like, look, man, we still didn't get, you know, that legislation passed that would help with reforming our criminal justice system, decriminalization of marijuana. We still got to get that mall fixed, and we still got transportation problems need to be fixed. So, you know, a lot of those issues that motivated me to get up and run for office, though we've made progress on, we still got a lot of work to do. And I think that's my motivation to want to stay around for a little longer.
So do you think, like, even if you were to stay in it for the run of 10 years, you will stay at this level of government?
County commission? Probably not. I've never said to myself, I want to be a commissioner for just, I want to make a career out of being a district commissioner. But, you know, we'll see. You know, I say that now, but, you know, the other side of that is there could be an issue or a cause that pushes me to go say, well, let me give it another term. Let me stick around for X amount of years. But at the same time, it would be cool to see if I can take my talents, you know, to different levels or platforms. So we'll see. I'll let y'all know whenever I do it.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Please do. Please do.
For sure.
Yeah.
But can you tell everybody where to find you before you head up out of here?
Yeah, sure. So social media, I do my website. Campaign website is Kirkland, 4, Gwinnett.com. You can read about myself, why I decided to serve, and you can follow all my social media there. My campaign email is Kirkland@Kirkland4Gwinnett.com. And then you can also reach out to GwinnettCounty.com for the official government correspondence. And if you have county or some kind of issue that I can help you with in my official capacity, reach out to me at Kirkland@GwinnettCounty.com. And me and my staff would be happy to help.
Okay. What's the chances of us getting a City of Lawrenceville type bill for Duluth?
City of Lawrenceville? What do you mean by that?
So, like, City of Lawrenceville, like, all your utilities are paid under one bill.
Oh. I don't know if that would happen because it's like the different utilities are by different utility providers.
Okay.
So like Lawrenceville, they actually do their own natural gas, and they used to do their own water for a period of time. But Gwinnett does that. It gets really funny, and we haven't even talked about Georgia Power.
Oh, yeah, tell us about Georgia Power.
I mean, it's just, it's just. I guess what I'm getting at is there's a lot of different organizations that provide you your utilities, and to get it on one bill would be super easy. But given how there's so many different agencies that deal with that, I don't think it's likely. But yeah.
Okay.
Well, listen. Y'all make sure y'all follow him. I will link all of his socials down below as well as his website. If you have any questions, you live in the Duluth, Suwannee,
Sugar Hill, this whole west side of the county.
The whole west side of the county. Make sure y'all hit him up in his email. He's listening, okay? And make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. This podcast will be on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, you know what I'm saying, Spotify, all that great stuff. You know, we had Broadband and Third Mike today.
Yeah, Broadband the man. B Mike, shout out to Big Holland, people of Atlanta. Thank you. So I guess
thank you for coming through. You know, I appreciate it. I think you gave some very insightful things that I don't think people were privy to. So I think that'll help a lot of people when making decisions, because I know a lot of people, they go in there down ballot, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
play tic-tac-toe.
Yeah. Keep it moving. But until the next time we see y'all, peace.
Y'all take it easy.